How's it going, everyone? Chris here, and welcome back to another breaking Nintendo news. In today's video, we are actually going to be taking a look at a statement by Miyamoto, who is the creator of Mario and Zelda, as well as Nintendo on the future of game controllers for Nintendo consoles. So the article that we are going to be taking a look at today comes from NintendoLife.com, and it is titled, Nintendo intends to create the next generation of controllers, Miyamoto striving to set a new standard. It starts by saying Nintendo has been a leader in video game controller design for the past 30 years. However, at its recent shareholders Q&A, it stated how it is actively working on establishing a new standard within the industry. When asked if he thought developers would continue making video games where players were required to look at a screen while using a traditional controller, Shigeyuki Takahashi explained how Nintendo had been challenging norms like this for some time now. We are always dreaming up new things. For example, for 1-2 Switch, the first game released for Nintendo Switch, we suggested that people play by looking at each other and not at the screen. And for VR, we thought about how we could change not just the controller, but also the gameplay itself, and came up with the Nintendo Labo Toy-Con 04 VR kit. The software exhibited at this year's E3 just happened to be mostly the type that is played with controller in hand, looking at the screen. However, I think you can see from the software that we've created that we are always trying out new ideas. Shigeru Miyamoto added to this by outlining his own vision for an entirely new generation of controller. I also believe that we should quickly graduate from the current controller, and we are attempting all kinds of things. Our objective is to achieve an interface that surpasses the current controller, where what the player does is directly reflected on the screen and the user can clearly feel the result. This has not been achieved yet. We have tried all kinds of motion controllers, but none seem to work for all people. As the company that knows the most about controllers, we have been striving to create a controller that can be used with ease and that will become the standard for the next generation. Ko Shioda reinforced the fact that Nintendo would only release a product if it was unique enough and control software were well, concluding, "We have not yet invented an all-purpose controller that is unlike any of the current devices." It's fascinating to hear Miyamoto speak about this particular subject, and it sounds as if he wants to achieve a new level of motion control that is a hybrid of the Wiimote, Kinect, and PlayStation Move. Switch owners can no doubt feel safe that their current standard controller setup will be around for a long time to come, but it also seems that Nintendo isn't done with motion controllers completely. Watch this space. What did you think of Miyamoto's ideas? Are you interested in Nintendo developing further new controllers and input methods? Let us know in the comments. So now that we've gone over the entire post, let's talk about it a little bit. Now, suffice it to say that Nintendo has had a ton of really unique and really interesting controllers over the years. Now, originally on the NES, that was just a very simple controller where there was a D-pad, an A and B button, as well as a start and select button, and a lot of people thought that that controller was pretty good. I mean, especially for the time, you guys have to remember, they did not have the technology to make games that used motion controls or anything else like that, so I think that we are never going to see something as simple as the NES controller again, just because again, it's just a little bit too simple, especially with today's standards. After that, we had the Super Nintendo controller, and once again, this one was pretty interesting because they decided to go ahead and add the famous Y and X buttons. Now, they also added in shoulder buttons, I'm pretty sure. Sorry guys, it's been a while since I've played with my NES or SNES, so please forgive me if I get any of this information wrong, but this controller once again showed that Nintendo was innovative. They wanted to create games that were more high quality, and games that were more powerful, such as Link to the Past, Super Mario World, and other games like that, so of course you're going to need more buttons for that. Obviously, use the Y button to run in Super Mario World and stuff like that, so as games are evolving, we can clearly see that these controllers are evolving with them, and I think that that's something that Nintendo is always going to strive for. Next up, we have probably one of Nintendo's most famous controllers being the Nintendo 64 controller. Now, when I was younger, I was never really a huge fan of it. When I was growing up playing my Nintendo 64, I didn't really like holding it just because the design was really weird, but now that I'm an adult and actually know how to play video games, this controller was absolutely stellar. Yeah, it did have a lot of issues with the circle pads sometimes not working correctly, and the buttons would sometimes stick, but adding in the Z button on the back of the controller, as well as just a lot more options, really showed how innovative Nintendo is. I mean, if you look at controllers for like Xbox and PlayStation, those controllers have stayed pretty similar throughout the years, but Nintendo tries new stuff each year, and after the N64 controller, we obviously have the GameCube controller. Now, personally, I always think of the GameCube controller as probably the most famous and well-loved controller of all time. I mean, this controller was so well loved that on the Wii U, they actually made a USB adapter so you could use your GameCube controller for the Wii U, and they also did that for the Nintendo Switch, and you can actually use your GameCube controller on the Switch for more than just Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You can actually use it for games like Mario Kart 8 and other games like that, so I really think that the GameCube controller is a design that Nintendo should work off of, just because at this point it does seem like Nintendo's most popular and most well-loved controller. In terms of general non-Nintendo fan popularity, obviously the Wiimote is probably the most popular, as most people have a Wii. I mean, I think the Wii sold like the best out of any other Nintendo console, so yeah, lots of people absolutely love this controller and absolutely love the motion controls. Now, when I was younger and I first got my first Nintendo Wii, I absolutely loved playing games like Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort, but it's gotten to the point now as an adult where I'm not a huge fan of motion controls anymore. Now, I really did want to try out 1-2 Switch because I know that the JoyCons do have HD Rumble, but I was never really too into games like that, so I do think that the Wiimote, although it is extremely important, I do think that it's something that Nintendo isn't going to go back to, just because this controller, once again, although it was extremely popular among fans, it just seems like the era of motion controls is pretty much over. I mean, yeah, we still have VR and all that, and I think they should keep moving in the VR direction, but I just don't think that they're ever going to go back to the Wiimote design. And now we have everyone's favorite controller from everyone's favorite game console, the Wii U gamepad. Now yes, I understand that this console and this controller have gotten a ton of negative reviews, but I still don't think that that means that this is a bad controller by any means. The Wii U gamepad was extremely innovative and let you play a bunch of new games on the gamepad while also playing on the screen. I thought it was absolutely amazing that you could switch items in Zelda Wind Waker, which is my personal favorite game, with just the touch of a button, and you wouldn't have to go into the start menu. I thought playing Pikmin 3 was absolutely amazing, and there are just so many games that utilize this so well. However, considering they just switched over to the Nintendo Switch, and these controllers are super tiny and super innovative, I don't think they're ever going to go back to the gamepad design. And finally, obviously the last controller that we have to talk about are the JoyCons that come with the Nintendo Switch. Now, once again, these controllers are absolutely amazing. Personally, I have pretty big hands because I am a big guy, so it is a little bit hard for me to just hold one Joy-Con, but as long as you put it into that little controller case that you can make with both Joy-Cons, it's a little bit easier for me to use. Now, personally, whenever I play Nintendo Switch games, I do like to use the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, and honestly, I think that's just the way that Nintendo should go from now on. The Pro Controller is an absolutely amazing controller, and I think that if Nintendo wants to keep being innovative, they should just keep adding controllers like this. The wireless is absolutely awesome, and I do really like how you can play it on the go, even if your Switch is not in docked mode, you can still use your Pro Controller, which is absolutely amazing. Now, personally, in terms of Nintendo's future, I don't think they're just going to stick with this Pro Controller, but I would be pretty happy if they did. So, all of these controllers definitely have a part in Nintendo's history, but which controller do I think that they are going to base their next design off of? Personally, guys, I don't think that they're going to base the design of the next controller off anything. If we want to take what Shigeru Miyamoto said as fact, then he said that they are working on creating basically a brand new controller, and I don't think that they're going to take inspiration from anything. I think that they are going to try and create a brand new controller that is not only easy to use for fans who are just starting out, but also comfortable enough for us Nintendo fans who've been playing for a long time that we can still use it even on the go and stuff like that. Now, I do think that Nintendo has had a lot of very interesting controller designs over the past couple of years, so I am very much looking forward to seeing what the next controller is going to look like, and what we can expect to see from Nintendo next. However, guys, with all of that being said, let me know your thoughts on this article, on what Shigeru Miyamoto said, as well as my thoughts on it in the comment section down below. What do you guys think that the next Nintendo controller is going to look like? Do you guys hope it's more like the Wii U gamepad, or do you guys hope it's more like the GameCube controller? Why or why not? Thank you guys all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, share, and like, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.